GM Growth Fam, time for another episode. And if you're a startup founder today, you may not know that you have a superpower, the superpower of sounding the same. While you do have the superpower of generating instant and infinite content that sounds perfect, that sounds exactly what your user may want to hear. But the tricky problem is that in a world where you can spin up social media content for 30 days in 5 seconds, where you can spin up email copy or website copy for thousands of different target audiences in minutes, the real challenge becomes how do you connect with your audience? Today, I hosted Talia Wolf, who's the author of the Emotional Targeting Framework, to really decipher, in a world where everybody sounds perfect, how can you sound different? How can you ensure that you are the option that people end up going to and pulling out their credit card for? How do you make your product the winner in a sea of sameness? Enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you very soon. So I finally get to check off a wish guest of mine today, a respected author, and really one of the people whose perspective has helped me personally as a marketer quite a bit. So Talia, thank you so much for being here today and taking out the time.
Wow, that was so kind. Thank you for having me.
Talia is the author of Emotional Targeting, which really is a framework I feel like every single founder, especially technical founder, should really deep dive into and get aware about it. So, Talia, in terms of the book itself, the framework, can you maybe in 60 seconds try to break down what it's all about? Who is it for? What are we trying to achieve?
Can try. Emotional targeting is the framework that I use with my agency to optimize customer journeys. We've been doing it for over a decade now. It's all based on consumer psychology and the idea that if you want to increase conversions and you want to get more leads or trials or demo requests or sales, you have to understand why people buy from you. You have to understand the real why, the intent. And usually, and almost always, that is connected to emotions, how people are feeling right now, how they want to feel, the concerns, the struggles, everything that they're feeling, and how your product can help solve that. So my goal with the emotional targeting framework is to help brands truly, really understand who their customers are beyond the behavioral segments like age, geographical location, and gender, but like really deep dive into who are you actually speaking to? Why do they buy from you? And then we audit the customer journey, everything, not just the website. So off the website and on the website to understand what's not connecting. Now that we know their customers back to front and we really understand why they buy, it's a lot easier for us to identify why people aren't converting, what's not hitting, if it's a messaging, if it's design, if it's colors. And then we run experiments, A/B tests, to see what will increase conversions. And it's all based on understanding and being customer first.
Yeah. And really, I'm sure you get this question from what I hope is ignorant founders is, Talia, I can make my copy emotionally aware using Claude or ChatGPT. I can take the same principle and sort of figure out how to increase my conversions. So when you do get a question like that or a remark like that, how do you make them understand how to really understand emotionally aware copy to an AI that maybe is just trying to imitate it? And that too badly.
The fact that you didn't ask, how do you convince someone that emotions matter? Because that's usually the question I get where like emotions in B2B in tech, like that's not a thing. They're actually stronger than in B2C. When someone asks me a question about AI, my immediate response is, this is why your website looks exactly like your competitors. And this is why when people come to your website, they have no idea if they should choose you or anyone else. The amount of companies that are using AI to write copy right now is insane. Everyone is using the same AI slop. And that means that every tech company you land on says the number one solution for the all-in-one platform for powered by AI. It's all the same crap. Like it's all just saying the same over and over and over again. And as I like to say, and this is something that I usually ask founders, is if I took your logo and I switched it out with your competitors, would anyone know the difference? And the answer is no, because everyone's saying the same stuff. So if you use AI to write emotional copy, and I'm doing air quotation marks for anyone who's just listening, you are effectively telling your prospects to go away. That is what you're doing.
Yeah, fair enough. I also feel like on the other side of the spectrum is, let's say somebody isn't that ignorant. Maybe they have like a good, solid branding team, content team, and they're also trying to figure out what emotionally aware looks like. But let's say they do end up at the same place. And I'm asking you this question because I've never seen you answer it. Is if both companies are emotionally aware about who their target ICP is, they psychologically understand how to target them. And both of them are, by some coincidence, targeting the same ICP because they're direct competitors, features are directly competing with each other. How does a company in a scenario like that find an edge for themselves?
I think that if you've done the research and you've truly gotten to know your customers really well, then your competitive advantage isn't going to be in your pricing or your features and your technology, because you know that your competitor probably has the same. The one thing that you can stand out in is in the particular way you solve a problem. So when I say that, and actually, I think you had Gia on this podcast, and she said it perfectly. It's like when you say easy to use, because everyone says that, what does that mean? Easy to use means different things to different people. And so it's not enough to just have a compelling headline. It's not enough to just be, use emotional copy on your website. And I think when people think about using emotion, they think about like this fluffy stuff of like, I just have to have this beautiful headline and it needs to be flowery and cute and I need to make a joke or I need to be emotional about it. But that's not the point. The point with emotional targeting is that you're meeting people where they already are. Meaning people are already feeling these emotions. You can either address them or not. If you have done the research and you know exactly what pains people feel, if you know what's waking them up at night, if you know how frustrated they are when they step into an office and they have to deal with all these challenges, then as a company that understands these people, that's what you need to talk about. So your audience can be the same. Your features can be the same. The technology can be the same. The way you speak to people, the way you relate to them, how you talk to them matters. And sometimes, like even for us, when we worked with a project management solution, there's dozens of those. Like they're all the same and they all have the same features. But the difference was that this particular company, Teamwork, spoke specifically to client serving teams. So if you serve clients, if you're a freelancer, if you're an agency, if you do client work, you want to use Teamwork. Can you use any other product? Can you use ClickUp? Can you use Monday? Yes. But if you're serving clients, you want to use Teamwork because it was built by an agency for agencies, because everything in their product is around helping you as a founder reach profitability, measure billable hours, understand who's working and who isn't. And it's all tailored around that. So it's not in a one moment that like, okay, we're both competitors. We both understand our customers well and we're all speaking to the same and you just nail that headline and you've got it. It's not that. It's everywhere. And that's what makes it so hard. It's in Reddit that you are talking to your customers and relating to them. It's on LinkedIn, it's on your blog, and it's on your landing pages. Everywhere should speak to people.
When you talk about trying to understand what your customers are saying, it's almost like a cliche thing, right? Where, yeah, go and try to understand what your customers want. A lot of the times, I mean, I know you've said it too, is sometimes is the customers don't know what they want. Like marketing is just as much about generating the demand as it is about understanding where that is coming from. So let's say I have a team of researchers, or I'm just using AI to understand on Reddit what the pain points of my customers are. What is like let's say, common mistake that you see teams do when they are trying to understand pain points, when they are trying to pinpoint where to go with their targeting?
Probably two things. One is using just one source of data. So you're only going to one Reddit thread that has 170 comments and you're using that to determine your entire strategy when you should be combing through dozens of Reddit threads. And you should also be doing that on LinkedIn. And you should also be interviewing people and you should also be doing surveys and you should do a comparison between you and your competitors. So it's not enough to just hear that Reddit's great right now and analyze one thread. The second thing is biases. And also, I would say into that, believing what ChatGPT or Gemini are telling you. As oftentimes, what I've seen is a team will go in, they'll scrape a Reddit thread. I've recently had this with one of our clients, where there's an entire thread about how to choose plumbing services. And you ask ChatGPT, like, what are the top 3 things people are looking for when choosing a plumber? And it just says pricing matters, safety matters, on time, timing matters. I'm like, yeah, but that's obvious. Let's get into like the nitty gritty. Like, why is timing a big issue? Why is trust a big issue? Trust is a big issue because you're letting someone into your house and they have to fix your plumbing and you don't know if you can trust them. And that's scary. Or they might break something, they might ruin something, they might steal something, they might not show up. Timing matters because you are a working mum and you don't have time and you need someone to show up. There's layers to everything. So if you just take AI at face value, where it's like, trust matters, we have been trusted since 1928. Good for you, man. But like, trusted with what? How? Why do people trust you? You have to be able to know what to look for. Those quotes, those specific words people use. I'm not saying do everything manually like we used to do before, but double check everything and go deeper. Like, do not just accept what ChatGPT is telling you because it's not doing in-depth work. It doesn't know what to look for. It's just giving you surface stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And you can almost like feel the AI trying to imitate the emotions. It's almost like you go into an uncanny valley of, even if it's doing a good job, sometimes, like, for example, when it's trying to break something down or trying to go deeper on a specific subject that you are also trying to break down, it's not the AI driving your direction, it's you driving the AI's direction. And it's only just confirming your biases and
Yeah.
giving you the kind of answer that you're looking for. So it's never about giving you the quality that you need. Amazing.
Well, in research, there's always been biases. It's always been that. So when you add in another tool, you're adding more bias, especially a tool that imitates you, wants to sound like you. And yeah, it's just adding more complexity. I've said this multiple times where I would sometimes go down a rabbit hole of like 2 hours on Gemini and I'm like, it's almost there. It always feels like it's almost right. And then I'm like, I step away for 5 minutes to work on my whiteboard and I've nailed it. But you just get so used to this immediate ping pong with ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's addictive, but it's not very helpful. And there's so much bias there.
Do you also, taking it to the other side, do you also feel like there are mistakes that you can make even if you decipher what emotions you're trying to target? Like, is there it's like a devil's version of emotional targeting where you do everything right, you understood the psychological triggers that you're trying to tap onto, but it didn't lead to the kind of business outcome that you wanted?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. So let me just explain what this looks like. Oftentimes, when you're doing A/B testing, a lot of it is based on guessing and best practices and what someone, told you to do or something you asked ChatGPT about. And you run a test on a new headline or an exit pop-up or call to action button, or you remove a form field and it doesn't increase conversions. You're kind of left, you're back in at ground zero. You've got no idea what to do next. You're guessing. When you do your emotional targeting research, you start at a hypothesis. For example, with teamwork, it was our hypothesis is that when people land on any of Teamwork's assets, they cannot clearly see that this product was designed for them. So that is our hypothesis. Now, how are we going to fix that? There are multiple ways. We could try with social proof. We could try with a new headline. We could try an exit pop-up. We could try a new there's so many things. We run a test. So for example, on a comparison page or on a pricing page or in the menu. You increase conversions, great. You don't. That doesn't mean that you're back to square one. It means the way you applied your hypothesis was incorrect. Now you have to find a different way to do it. So it's less about trying to guesstimate what would make a change and more understanding people just aren't getting it. Like, people don't get what this product does, or people don't understand that we built this for them, or people don't clearly see the result they're going to get. How can I clearly communicate that? And then you run a series of tests until you find the way to talk about it in the right way. And sometimes that means that you'll, go more into social image. So in B2B, there's two different clusters of emotions that really matter. Social image is how I want other people to think about me after I've purchased a product. And self-image is how I want to feel about myself. I want to be more successful. I want to feel smarter. Social image, I want to get that promotion. I want people to see me as the go-to. If you have decided, if your hypothesis is that people can't clearly see that this was designed for them, that this was built for them, you can test social image copy, self-image copy. You can test different variations and things until you find the one that works. So that is the difference from my experience, is that you're not guessing and throwing spaghetti at the wall, but you're not at ground zero anymore. And that's the thing. It's not that like, oh, great, I know that my prospects have fear, so let's use fear. And that's not the point. The point, again, is like, how do you meet them where they already are and help them?
Do you also, I'm curious to know, like, if you have a case study of it where something random worked? Because, and I really feel like I was talking to somebody who was going to buy B2B, it was a account management tool. They ended up on the website and they just said, like, I loved the vibe of the team that was displayed on the employment page, like the careers page. So
Yeah.
they weren't even like looking at the product offering or trying to understand the features, or like, does this solve my social or self-image cluster problem? It was something completely random. So, and of course, this may be something we cannot optimize for, but I would love to know when these kinds of cases do come up and a
I
company's trying to,
disagree.
yeah. Okay. Okay. So let's dive into that. So what
Here's what I
happens
will
then?
say. When people land on a B2B website, they have a shopping list. They know, what budget they have, and they know what features they're looking for, and they know what integrations they need. So they do a quick check. Once that's done, they now have 3 product accounting softwares that they can choose from. How do they make that choice? If you have the exact same features, the pricing is the same, and the integrations are the same, how do you make that choice? On an emotional level. You might not admit it. You might not even know it, but you start scanning the web and the website for these things, these little approvals that will keep on reminding you that you made a good decision. For example, Glassdoor is a platform that tells people what it's like to work for different companies. Some people really care about this stuff, and they will want to work with good people. And part of what they look at is, hey, how does this company treat their employees? Because it makes them feel safe. So when your friend or colleague basically said, okay, yeah, this looks good and this looks good, how do I choose? Without knowing it, they were just looking for different affirmations of how do I know what is the perceived risk? How do I reduce this risk of when I choose you? Is this going to be scary or not? How do I reduce this risk? And you do that by going through the different pages of the website, by looking at things that don't necessarily matter for an actual product, for diving into conversations. And if it's enough for you to see on a Discord conversation where someone says, the project manager was an asshole on this and don't ever work with him, like, that would put you off. If you care about relationships, if you care about customer success, there's a lot of layers in there. And we look for those affirmations of how can I reduce risk? How can I feel that like this is a good, safe choice? Because when you make a B2B choice, so much more rides on it than just when you're buying something for yourself. Like, you could literally lose your job if you choose the wrong product. So that's why I disagree. I do think that was their way their emotions were gravitating towards that. Does that make sense?
No, 100%. It's almost like you're looking for let's say primary signals and secondary signals, and then you're really trying to deeply understand what's going to be the best fit in this particular scenario. The other side, though, and this is something I'm personally also experiencing, is when I have a shopping list, when I know what kind of a product I'm looking for, and when I'm going on platforms like ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, and it's that particular LLM does have a lot of context on me as a person, right? It understands maybe, and there's an assumption, of course, we don't have the data, but it can assume what kind of things I like, what I dislike, what kind of things make me feel safe, what kind of decisions do I end up taking on my own, where do I need support, so on and so forth. So it has a lot of individual context. Now, add to that, I go on it and I'm like, okay, I have like these three options. John, my boss, really likes option number two, and I'm inclined to give this over because you're not really making a buying decision. You're almost looking for confirmation of, okay, I'm going in this direction. Is it not going to get me fired? Right. And when you're talking to companies who are building their websites and, trying to figure out if that targeting is going to emotionally land or not, is it going to move the needle in the right way. But now there is a filter of an LLM in place. How are companies now dealing with that? Is it just better information on their websites, or do you feel like there's a change that's also happening with just how the content on those websites look like?
Absolutely. I've been talking about this quite a lot recently, is that unfortunately, for most people, optimization no longer lives on the website alone. So until, I don't know, last year, maybe even 2 years ago now, actual conversion optimization. Conversion optimization was all about controlling and optimizing the assets that you own: landing pages, websites, emails, ads. But the customer journey no longer looks like that. And we've kind of touched on it before. People come to your website to like check off the list and then they leave because they trust strangers more than they trust brands. So they go to wherever their communities are and they ask questions like, should I trust this? Is this real? Am I going to regret this? Have you tried this before? Looking for confirmations of, okay, yes, this is good. And then they go back to your website, meaning when people do go back to your website, sometimes they come to the website for the first time when they've already made a decision, because they've made a decision using AI or using Reddit or LinkedIn conversations or a WhatsApp you have no idea about or Slack group. And they've made that decision already. And now they're coming to your website. So two things are true about conversion optimization now. One is that the decision has changed. Where decisions are happening has changed. And because emotional targeting is all about understanding decisions, you have to be where those decisions are made. So you actively have to be optimizing Reddit, social media. You have to be on podcasts. You have to be on the webinars. You have to be optimizing articles. You have to be everywhere. You have to be shaping the narrative, because if you don't shape it, someone will shape it for you. We were actually on a call with our client last week who was saying, well, we were telling them that they need to start putting pricing on their pricing page. And their entire executive team is against it, which I understand, because most B2B companies, enterprise solutions, don't say what their pricing is because they want to be competitive. But if they don't do it, AI is doing it. And we did this on the call with them. I showed them, or my colleague Claire showed them, hey, look at all this. They're showing your pricing and it was incorrect. So you either own that conversation and you start replying on the website. What is my pricing? What do I do? How do I do it? And off the website, replying to people, going into Glassdoor, going into Discord, replying to comments on YouTube, going into Slack. You have to be everywhere. So that's one thing. It's the optimization, optimizing everywhere. It's not just the website anymore. And that is number one. Number two, your website has now become the place where people are looking for confirmation of what they've already decided. So now you basically have to match your website to what people have basically taught themselves to believe. I believe this is trustworthy. I believe it can deliver on this stuff. I'm now going to your website just to make sure that this is correct. So your website has to match what the web is saying. And in addition to that, you have to be high converting, because when someone comes to your website, they're more likely to convert. than not, but they're ready to convert. So if you don't have the right call to action at the right time, if you don't have the right messaging, if you don't tell them where to go, if you don't tell them what's going to happen after they convert, they're not going to convert. So optimizing your website is more important than ever before because people come and go and they're looking for those confirmations. And optimizing off the website has never been more important than today, because if you're not shaping that narrative, then you're not going to get the conversions. So conversion optimization has essentially become a lot harder. But if you know your customers on an emotional level, that is the secret foundation. That is the secret to everything, because most of your competitors only focus on age, geolocation, gender, browsers, devices. They are focusing on their features. They're focusing on their pricing. If you understand your customers and start talking to their emotions, if you relate to them and on an emotional level, you will own the market, and you do that everywhere on and off the web.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I also feel like what I like to call is, we used to have a search level, like a search line of trust. Like that was the barrier. If you showed up on the first page of Google, you had a good chance of converting people. And now it's become about, you need to build a social level of trust where, like you said, right? You have to be on Discord. You have to be everywhere, because ultimately what you're trying to do is build almost like a signal map, not just for your customer, but also for the LLM to understand. If I'm telling my user option A is great, then I'm not just looking at option A's website. I'm looking at everything for confirmation of the fact that option A is best. Amazing. One thing that I was curious to know is, you talk about like a few emotions that are core, that you're, I mean, at least in a B2B context, anyone is trying to build. Is there an example of, how should I put it, something wacky, something like out of the box? Because, and I'll tell you where this question comes from, is there are a lot of B2B brands now that are investing extremely heavily on like in-house content production, and they're not being corporate with it. They are sort of taking the B2C playbook almost and trying to generate interest in the brand from that perspective. Talk to me about, if somebody wants to strategically do that and understand, how do I figure out what is the human version of my brand sound like? How can a brand do that?
Say that it's all in the research, and your blog and your content that you're creating is the answer to that. So on and off the website, right? Like, because you can also write guest posts for other places that you want to show up in, that you know that your audience reads and cares about. And you can go on a podcast or do a webinar where your audience listens. But in order to do all that in a human way that isn't corporate, you have to know your customers. You have to understand them beyond the technical stuff. What's happening is a lot of companies are kind of shipping out AI content. So we don't want to do that, obviously. But if you want to be more human, and if you want to start speaking the language of your customers, you just have to do the research. So you have to understand the specific pains that they feel in their everyday job. And there's a lot of things out of the box. Like you were asking, what's a wacky thing? We once did some work on software for QA and analysts. Basically, it's QA software. And they've got, great features and great pricing, very competitive. And when we're doing the research, this thing kept coming up in our interviews where they were saying, well, everyone hates us. I'm like, what do you mean? And they were like, well, we're the QAs. So everyone's really excited about shipping this new feature or this new product or whatever. And then me, the QA, comes up and says, no, stop. This is broken. This doesn't look good. This is like, so people don't like them. They're annoying. Now, I don't know if that's true or if it's perceived, that's how they perceive. But they think, and this kept coming up again and again, that people don't understand their work and people, kind of like brush it off like it's not that important. Just let it go live. Come on, let's move fast and break things. So the angle that we actually took with our optimization was the fact that people will finally appreciate you and understand the work that you do and value what you do, which is the last thing you would think you would talk about when it comes to a QA software. Like, QA software does not talk about the emotions of the analyst. That's not what people care about. So, but then you can create a bunch of content, which no one else would think about because all other blogs and content and articles out there are probably about the features and what you do as a QA analyst. But that's not what you could do here. In this opportunity, you can interview people, you can put spotlights on your different clients and talk about like the incredible saves that they made or how this one thing that they found out completely changed the product trajectory. Like there's so many things you can do, but you have to be willing to go deep and not just try and fake it till you make it kind of thing. Like you have to actually do the deep work of asking people those questions.
Yeah. And I think really when it comes to figuring out what the differentiation is, I think this could be a great point is if your competitors sound like sterile corporate B2B BS and you add some flair to it and you really go down to researching and really deeply understanding what your ICP thinks or how they're thinking. You just get to the point where you're trying to get to, and that's that way to capture attention. And I wanted to come back to this because I feel like, let's say in a perfect world, although maybe we never reach there, but let's say going deeper on the aspect of, let's say everybody understands, okay, I need to emotionally target, right?
Yeah.
Like there is a structure to my website and that really needs to be there. And, you even showed an example, I believe, in a previous discussion of this is what we did for a specific client. This is what the changes look like. Let's say everybody understood that
Yeah.
and everybody started to implement that. Do you feel we will ever enter into a future where being scrappy or not being perfect or being essentially, you're still speaking to your ICP, but like it's not the way they maybe like, but it's the way that makes you stand out as a viable option for them? Do you feel like we will see a propagation of that where people really don't stick to the agreed upon line, let's say?
I think it's a trend thing, right? So, one thing we're noticing, for example, is that a lot of corporate brands are now asking their employees to start engaging on Twitter suddenly. It used to be that, like, only the corporate brand with the logo answers stuff. And now they're asking people to comment and like and engage on all sorts of platforms. My husband works at Gong, which is an incredible company, and they actively engage. I mean, he does it because he loves it, but like they actively engage in these things because, well, because it's a great company to work for and people want to. And I think that's the thing, right? Like there's a difference between when you ask people to do stuff and versus like, I love working at this place. I think it's great. I'm just commenting because I want to engage. So I think there's the trend stuff where everyone's trying to do something and everyone's asking their people to do things, but only in a certain way. And there's rules and regulations about how to do it versus the person that's like, I just want to be, authentic and answer people's questions and help out. And I think as we move to this kind of world where everything feels fake and everything feels like it's driven by AI-ness, people want to feel that connection. They want to feel authenticity. And I can tell a mile away on every single comment I get on my LinkedIn post if it was written by AI or not. Like you can tell when someone's being authentic and just sharing their, 2 cents or not. And you can also tell when everyone's jumping on the bandwagon because Taylor Swift just got, whatever, like engaged and now everyone's doing something orange. Like it's just a trend. I think more and more companies are going to try and do it. The key will be how authentic you really are. And I think that's where the small, scrappy teams get to shine, even if you're not the big, huge logos everyone knows.
Yeah. Is there a company that you particularly like that is doing stuff like this?
Well, I think I mentioned Gong. I like following them. They're doing some really cool things. I think MailChimp is doing a great job at that the last few years. There's a few different companies that are actually smaller that I think are starting to get it, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah, makes sense. And I'm sure you get this question as well, but for a brand that is currently worried because I have a technical audience that I'm trying to sell to, that at least on a personal level, they are able to build those tools in house or get a lot of, maybe let's say 80% of that functionality building something on their own over a weekend. From an emotional targeting perspective, the user is still solving for that pain point, but they're just doing it on their own rather than go out and look for a solution for that. What are you talking to those companies about? And do you feel like this is also a trend, or you feel like, oh, it's just because it's novel, so people are engaging in this, but ultimately, vendors are the kind of solutions you're going to look for?
View that as a competitor.
Mhm.
Everyone's building stuff now. Like, you can build stuff as fast as possible. Not everyone should be building stuff. I think, yes, it's kind of a trend right now where everyone's building everything. But I would, and that might die down, it might not, but I would treat it as a competitor. If your product can be easily built with AI and give the exact same value as everyone else, the question is, where is your value? Does it lie in features and technology that can be built in 24 hours with Lovable? Or is the value something deeper? And that's the thing, because there will be better products. There will be better pricing and better features and better technology, and technology changes, but people don't. So you have to figure out, what is your value beyond this feature? Because at some point, someone's going to come along and do something better than you. And you can try and adapt and chase them, but you have to find the core thing of how you solve, how you solve a problem for people at its core that isn't to do with a feature. So it's another competitor. And if your audience are techies who build things fast, then you have to think about what your techie audience cares more about: building the thing themselves, or what actually drove them to build a product by themselves. Is it because it's trendy and cool? Is it because there's a shit ton of pressure right now from everyone else on the executive team to build things and ship fast and not pay for things? Is it because of what? What caused them to do this? That is where your opportunities lie, when you understand the underlying cause of something and you adapt to that.
Of how, like, obviously AI has enabled you to build things on your own, solve your own pain points almost. But fundamentally, nothing really changes. Like, you're still looking at the same emotions. You're still trying to understand and research, how can I best build a solution that solves this particular problem. And yeah, just people have a tool now that can help them do it on their own. But ultimately, like, how many people are really going to do that? Like, especially in terms of reliability, I feel like that becomes an edge. I feel like maybe that's another, especially from a safety perspective, emotional trigger that companies can appeal to. Like, hey, you can build this tool over a weekend, but it's not going to be reliable. It's going to break. But you could use our tool for that. Amazing. Okay, last final question for you, Talia, is what do you feel like, with everything that's happening around us right now, what are the three biggest fundamental changes that are going to happen in terms of conversions for products in the next 5 years?
5 years is a very long time frame. Everything's changing
I know.
like every other
It's a
day.
trick
I can't
question.
answer 5 years. I can tell you what I believe in right now. I'm a complete believer in everything Amanda Natvidad and Rand Fishkin are talking about when it comes to zero-click marketing. We need to stop obsessing over tracking and attribution, and we need to be thinking about that more holistically. The other thing is, we have to be obsessive over our customers, obsess about our customers, about everything. That's the only way to stand out. And if you obsess about your customers, then you can survive. And the third thing is, I'm hoping that people will understand the importance of connection and empathy, and really resonating and relating to people, because I think that is the only way to survive. So I don't know if it's a prediction, because I can't predict stuff. I can tell you what I think is the most important stuff, and that is letting go of data-driven attribution metrics. And it's not that you can't measure stuff. Of course you have to measure that stuff. Absolutely. But the funnel doesn't look like it used to. So zero-click marketing is super important. You should read everything about it that you can. And connecting with your customers on an emotional level and obsessing about your customers is the only way to survive the next few years.
Quite the bombshell to end on. There's another hour of a conversation I could have had just based on that. Well, Talia, thank you so much for doing this. First of all, I feel like, emotional targeting is really the framework of the future, is my presumption. As a growth marketer, somebody who's obsessed with data, loves to look at dashboards and funnels and optimization. I really feel like it's ironical that the more we're progressing in tech, the faster we need to be more human and stop obsessing over data points and really figure out, okay, ultimately, whether it's the AI agent that buys through the human or the human buys them on their own, you're still trying to appeal to them. You're still trying to understand their pain points. And that's how we're going to progress. So amazing. This was quite the conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's emotional targeting is the foundation of everything, and it's more important than ever.
Awesome. So, anyway, thank you so much for doing this, Talia. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. See you in the next episode. Cheers.